In Python, there's a built-in graphical user interface library called Tkinter. It's a little old in the tooth, so it doesn't look very cool, but there are other libraries you can add in that make it look much cooler. If you've been through the tutorial before, you'll know that that's the case because we make some cooler looking programs. So from Tkinter, we're importing everything. Just for right now, we'll import everything. What is this line doing? What's happening here? Does this look familiar? It should, if you've been paying attention to the last however many minutes I've been talking about poop. TK is a class that's part of the Tkinter module. We're creating an object with all the code that goes with the Tkinter class. Or Tkinter, I don't know which way it's called. So this has all kinds of methods. Geometry is, how big is my window? And it goes X, Y. So it's Cartesian stuff, coordinates. Even though it's passed as a string, it makes it 100 pixels wide, 75 pixels vertically. Now this is just a simple showing of, oh, this is really not the one I want. Why do I have this anyway? Yeah, this is it. Oh no, that's not it either. I just redid this. There, I need to delete that one. There we go. We're importing, we've created our main window, which is what root is. That's our main window. That's our object. That's a Tkinter object. From there, we can do main loop. Well, that's interesting. In a graphical program, it's always waiting. The program is waiting for an event. Remember Pygame, where you're capturing events and you have a specific loop in there? This is that game loop, except this is not a gaming program. All graphical user interfaces are waiting for you to do something. Like I press my space bar. Well, that was an event that I pressed my space bar. I press my backspace key. Windows and Visual Studio Code are waiting for me to do things. When I do something that's called an event, that gets captured and something happens. With this program, there's nothing to capture. If I click this, there's an event that I just did and it triggered this, which is basically the most does nothing window in the entire world, because that's all it does. It displays a window. Well, that's okay. We got a window going. Probably be nice if our window had something in it, wouldn't it? Well, still we import. I don't know why I put create a label here, because that's not a label. We create our root window or our object, which is the root window. We set our geometry a little different, meaning 200 wide by 50 tall. How do we create labels? Well, it takes 2 lines of code to create a label. First, what does this look like again? What am I doing here?
Using a class, you've created an object.
Yep, exactly, Joe. So this is my class. These are parameters I'm passing into it, and I end up with an object that has all the code needed to be a label. Because that's already built into when we imported this. All the code is in here. We don't have to know what the code looks like. We just have to know how to use it. And if I point at it, you can see there's all kinds of things in there. And boy, that's just way more than we need to know right now, isn't it? Whew. You do need 2 things with a label. You do need to say what window that's connected to. So this attaches it to this window. We need to know, well, for a label, if we don't display anything, it's not helpful because it's just invisible. So text is a property that we should fill in somehow, and that's what it'll do. That's our text that's going to be displayed. /n means new line. That's how you do that kind of stuff. Now, we need to put that on the screen. with a layout manager. Whoa, boy, that one just blew everybody's mind, right? Layout manager, what is all this? Well, everything on the screen is widgets. Widgets meaning, there's a taskbar, there's an icon, there's a refresh button. All these things are widgets. That's the generic term for anything in a graphical user interface. But somehow we have to tell those widgets where to go. At this point, we've just created the widget, but we haven't say, okay, go ahead and be displayed somewhere. So there it is. So I wanted to show my little thing. Talks about layout man. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, and then I close that. We don't need the circle calculator. Zoom sometimes makes it hard to get things and find things. All right. So there are different layout managers that you can use, meaning different ways to put things on the screen. But notice that most of your programs, if you think about it, they're in a grid. Word is in a grid. Internet Explorer, Zoom is in a grid. So we access the grid by going 0, 0. Row 0, column 0. Row 0, column 1. Row 1, column 0. Row 2, column 0. It's called the grid method because almost all programs you use are laid out in some sort of a grid pattern. So we want our circle, not circle. We want our label grid, and we're just going to put it in row 0 and column 0. That's all it does. Oh, and that's wrong. Grid label. And grid is a, yeah, you should frid the label. Fry the label, okay, grid, okay. Grid, when you apply a layout manager, that attaches it to the window and says, display it here. And then we loop our program. We don't loop it, it doesn't display. Displays once and then we don't ever see it again. Ooh, look at there. Our first program. Not very exciting, is it? Well, let's look at a more exciting program. I know, excitement is relative. Let's look at this guy. Oh my gosh. I'm kind of jumping ahead here, aren't I? Holy smokes. Yeah, this will work. Let's see, square calculator. Oh yeah, square cal. Oh, there's one. Fahrenheit to Celsius. Yeah. Well, let's do this one because it doesn't have the extra stuff. Now, over time, if you're doing a program, for example, as complex as Visual Studio Code, you're not going to want to have functions and everything passing stuff back and forth. You do it OOP. So I start right out by doing all my examples in object-oriented programming. So when we initialize the object, I am putting them both in the same thing. We create the root, we create the geometry, we create the title, and we have a method that says create widgets. Ooh, it's getting more complicated, isn't it? Property. We're changing how it looks. Doesn't quite fit, does it? But this is supposed to say square calculator. This is a label. This is an entry. So we can type in some numbers. This is a button. So we can calculate whatever, oh, square. We're calculating the square of a number. So that's the standard stuff you see all the time. You have labels that tell you what's going on. You have a place to input information. You have buttons and stuff to say something, to do something. And then typically things are displayed in a label. So this program has the characteristics of a regular graphical user interface program. Well, there's our instruction label. Oh, I should run this while we're talking about it. Let's see, there it is. So there's our instruction label. We create it, we put in the text, we grid it up here. This is 0, 0. But when I create my entry widget, what's going to be the grid for that? This one's 0, 0. Everything starts at 0.
No.
Yep. This will be 0, 1. And as a matter of fact, it is 0, 1. So that puts that over there. Entry is an up. Ooh, what happened there? Oh, sometimes Visual Studio Code tries to help, but it's not. So an entry widget is where we type things in. That's how we get information from the outside world. But we have to grid it so it shows up. Buttons say, do something. Well, we need text on the button so we can see what it is. We also have to somehow say what command is going to be executed. You don't put parentheses when you put something inside a button, which I know is because calculate square looks like this. And normally when we call it in a console program, we put the parentheses. Well, not here. You don't put parentheses, and that's a common mistake to put parentheses because you're used to doing it and your program doesn't work, but now you know where to look.
So you have text equals calculate square in parentheses, so.
With double quotes.
Yeah.
What I meant was that you don't call this function like that.
Yeah,
But text is the same way everywhere.
Yeah.
And then I have to grid it. And then I need to put the other label on it, but notice that my text is empty. Cool. This is something we're not even gonna worry about right now. Without that in there, oh, everything would be packed together nice and tight. You couldn't see anything. So this is magic for putting padding in between everything. I mean, I could explain it, but we don't need to blow people's brains up. So we're calculating our square, we get our entry. Notice that our entry has a get. So we're going to get the information from our entry, convert it to a float, assign it to the number. Well, we've done this before with import on the console, haven't we? Yeah. The only thing I haven't done with this is if I was going to stick to strictly object-oriented programming, I'd have a class for square, but I didn't. Here we square it. How do you display things in a label? Well, there's a text property. We assign new information to it, but we have to say configure to change it. Config changes what's in there. When we're creating it, we don't have to do anything special. We just put it in as a parameter. But if we want to change it, we're like reconfiguring it. So this try is, and I don't know if we've done try catch much or at all. If I try something and it blows up, I can say, okay, that's an exception. I'm going to handle it. And then I just say, please enter a valid number. I don't know that. I don't need to go through that anymore because our brains are already exploded. So there it is. So if I type in an A or a B or something, does it blow up? No, it just says, please enter a valid number. And then my program isn't quite big enough, is it? I need to make my program wider. How would I make my program wider? Like I ran it 20 times, didn't I? How would I make my program wider? What is when I created my program, which of these allows me to make it wider?
250.
Root geometry.
Yep. So we'll just do 300, because that's plenty of room. That's what that does. The geometry changes width and height. Oh, now I got plenty of room. There, please enter a valid number. Cool. Doesn't explode. 1 squared is, yeah, well, that was hard. 1 squared is 1. And there's our little GUI program. All of this is supplied by the operating system. How the window looks is supplied by the operating system. We have to add other things in order to make it look prettier. What we're going to do, let me find, oh, well, we'll do that. We'll just stop at this point. But that's